Good afternoon. This is Jack from Charts in the Markets, and this is the Bigger Picture webinar for the afternoon of Sunday, the 1st of June. My disclaimer, I do this for educational purposes only. I'm here to share my technical analysis with you. I hope you can take some of what I'm doing and learn from it, transfer it to your own charts. I'm not here to use trading signals. Right, I've had a busy day. I've got all the weekend charts out, and I've got the new weekly and monthly pivots out. And actually, I've written a post on equities as well, so check those out on my Twitter if you like. And let's see what's happening on the markets. Okay, right. We had a really interesting setup on. I was looking at this in the pre-market video on Friday, and this was on both ES and NQ. Where we've got potential level tops here, and we had little head and shoulder patterns which had set up, but hadn't yet broken down. Now, I was a bit doubtful about these making the targets. But I was thinking, obviously, I did note that on Friday the stats were bearish. It was the last day of the month. That's often the case. But I did note as well that the stats for Monday, Tuesday are bullish, as often is the case at the beginning of the month. So I was thinking these might break down, but I was a bit doubtful about certainly these big double tops playing out. Although I was thinking it might make it down here to 57.50. It didn't do that. We basically went down. We tested the weekly pivots, and it then went back up again. And so we will see. Sorry, the weekly pivots for last week, of course, obviously everything's moved now because we've got the new weekly and monthly pivots. So by the end of the day, both of those head and shoulder patterns had invalidated. We've gone over the right shoulder on ES, we've gone over it on NQ. Typically speaking, I'd then be looking for a retest of the May high. So that was where we left it on Friday. So we will see, but that's promising basically for seeing that. And we did get also a weak 60-minute buy signal fix on ES. Okay, looking at RTY, nothing of great interest happened. We've seen a bit of a consolidation. I wrote a post, I referred to it in the post I just wrote today, but I wrote a post 2 weeks ago talking about where the RSI 5 was and it breaking over 90 and talking about 2 weeks consolidation and wondering about a back test of the 200 EMA. And we've had 2 weeks of consolidation and we back tested the 200 EMA. So far, so good. Was I thinking that was likely to be bearish? No, I was thinking it would likely resume the uptrend afterwards. And I've got to say the obvious time to do that is tomorrow. So we will see how that goes. Could we go lower? Yes. Is there much reason to think so? Well, apart from the decent looking patterns on ES and NQ and NDX, no, not really. NDX stroke Qs, we've got a double top on. We haven't actually got a double top on SPX. We retested the high on ES, but we didn't do that on SPX, and we haven't got them on the others. I'm not really seeing this as a high confidence level, so we'll see. Okay, looking at YM. Didn't retest the high there yet either, and I am leaning towards the upside. We shall see. DAX has had a very strong year so far. I'm not seeing anything compelling saying this is about to end, although we do have daily sell signals on the RSI 5 and the RSI 14, I think. At some point, there will be a significant retracement. I have to say the evidence that it's going to be here isn't particularly compelling. Looking at the STX, no obvious pattern here at the moment. This has been underperforming relative to DAX. Okay, let's have a look at the bigger picture charts and let's have a look at ES. Okay, ES on the daily chart, we saw a back test of the daily middle band and a move up from there. I'm liking the upside actually. I'm still leaning towards seeing a retest of the all-time high. I'm leaning towards seeing that on SPX as well. These were the breaks over the 90 level on the RSI, and generally speaking, we saw some retracement of consolidation afterwards, and that is what we've seen. I was speculating at the time, back on the 16th, that we might see a retracement that could respect the 50 level here and might set us up with a sell signal when we then went back and retested the highs, but we didn't get that. So we're not really close to any sort of decent sell signal on SPX as yet. Looking at the hourly chart, not a lot to see. On the 15-minute chart, again, not a lot to see. One thing that disappointed me is we didn't quite make it back down to this level here. I am wondering about the fact that I don't really have any kind of decent pattern from the lows here. I'm hoping that I'll start seeing at the next high, I'll start getting some more. But what this generally means is that if I don't have an obvious pattern set up, then it's not going to turn. If we are going to see a significant reversal back at a retest of the all-time highs, it'd be very helpful to have a pattern set up saying so, and at the moment we don't have that. or any significant prospect of getting one. All right, looking at the Q's daily chart, we've got a possible weak RSI 14 sell signal brewing. We could, on a retest of the high, which we haven't seen yet on SPX, see a very weak RSI 14 sell signal brewing there. It's not a lot to be working with. We didn't quite retest the daily middle band here, but it thought about it. We did see, we almost saw a back test, but we did see the back test of the 200 DMA on SPX, and we did saw fairly aggressive back tests of the daily middle band on Dia and IWM. Okay, Qs, we've got a possible little level top here, obviously. So looking at the 15-minute, again, I'm not working with an awful lot in terms of patterns here so far, but I am hoping that that might clarify with the next high, assuming we are, of course, going up next. All right, Dow. I posted this chart today. I would mention that we've been consolidating above the weekly middle band. This is a pretty good level to go higher from on Dia. We have got an RSI 5 sell signal, but that's now reached the possible near miss target. We had a fairly aggressive back test of the daily middle band, and we saw another test of that on Friday. At the moment, daily middle bands look like pretty good support, and this is one reason I'm thinking we're probably not going to go any lower. And we've got a good opportunity to take off on Monday into the next move. Okay, we've got an old RSI 14 buy signal fixed on the hourly Dia chart, which may well be making. If what I expect to happen happens next week, we may well see that deliver and make target on the 15-minute chart. Not a lot to see, but again, we didn't make it back to this level here, which was really the minimum I was hoping for on all three of those. But we did make it on IWM. So let's have a look at that. Okay, on IWM, we more than made it. So I've got a better prospect of getting a pattern setting up on here, but again, we'll have a much clearer picture when we make the next high. In terms of the hourly chart, we've still got an old RSI 14 buy signal, but that's reached the possible near miss target. We had an aggressive, but didn't break below. We had an aggressive test of the daily middle band, quite a long way below it, but we managed to hold it, and we're testing this declining resistance, which I'm expecting to break. Now, one thing to mention on the IWM chart is we've got a potential inverted head and shoulders here. It's left shoulder and head and right shoulder. And I'm thinking this may well break up here. And of course, this does give us a shot at retesting the all-time high here, which I was thinking was a lower probability. But this pattern actually improves the odds of that quite a lot. Equally, of course, we can break up and then fail. But I'm going to be watching this one fairly carefully. And if we see this, then we might actually see a retest of the all-time high on Dia as well. But, and there is a but here, if we see those retests on Dia and on IWM, which are significantly further away from the all-time highs, then it may be that the price to be paid for that is that Qs and SPX go significantly higher than the retest of the all-time high. And I would say, looking at SPX, that I do have a potential higher target. We never quite made it to this trend line here. Now, I'm not saying we're necessarily going to make it, but what I would say is this trend line here is currently in about the 6,400 area. And if we were to see the retest of the high on Dia and IWM, well, that can be in range. And that is the obvious trend line resistance. So it's speculative at this stage, but if we go significantly higher after a retest of the all-time highs, I will be wondering about this. So we shall see. All right, let's have a look again at the other indices. So bear with me a moment. So DAX, there's a cautionary note here because we've got a possible RSI 14 sell signal brewing here on the daily chart on DAX, and we've got an RSI 5 sell signal which is fixed. They haven't made target. We saw a nice back test of the daily middle band, and that held like a champ. Watching this with great interest. Nikkei, I'm thinking this is looking ready to head back higher. We've held the daily middle band on the back test. It's trying to convert the 200 down at the moment. This also, I was thinking that it probably wouldn't retest the high, but again, we haven't got a bad little, it's oversized, but left shoulder, head, right shoulder. I am wondering about a retest of this high here at 42.4, and if we're going to see that on IWM and Dow, well, it's on the cards. So we shall see. All right, great. Now, one thing, I just wanted to do something very much in passing, but I know everyone's interested in Tesla generally. It's I posted this on my post today, and I was just noting that this double bottom, which I was writing about, I wrote a post and I was talking about this on the 17th of April. This broke up. I gave a target in the 367 to 70 area, and it made that target area. Got up to 367.71. Now, one thing you often see on a pattern like this is the reversal when it reaches the target. And at the moment, we've got a nice looking rising wedge, and we've got daily RSI 14 and RSI 5 sell signals growing. Sorry, fixed. The last time we had this wasn't quite right because this fixed before this one fixed. But the last time we had them fixed at the same time, it then retraced 61.8% of this move up from here to here over the next 4 months while forming a bull flag. Now, really, I'm expecting to see at least a retest of the 200 MA. I've got that currently at 302. And could it go lower? Well, let's just say that sales and earnings seem to be dropping rapidly, and the current PE ratio is 190, which seems a little rich. Could it go lower than 302? Hell yeah. In fact, I'm slightly astonished it managed to get up this far. But people do have a lot of confidence in Elon Musk, so fair enough. Even if there is no other reason for something to go up, faith can sometimes take it up quite a way. And I think maybe, well, if I was to pick a stock which is really being sustained by faith at the moment, I might well go for Tesla, because I'm not really seeing much other reason to think to see why it's still up here. But we'll see. All right, great. In that case, let's have a look at the currency charts and bonds. Okay, DX. This has just been kicking around going sideways for a few weeks. We've got a head and shoulder that's broken down with a target into the 98.4 area, which we haven't quite made, but I'm thinking we may well make. Looking at the other currencies, it's not a lot to see on these. Hang on, wait a second. I've got a nice looking rising channel here on Euro. I'm suggesting this is going to go higher, and that might get us to that target. Obviously, this could break down at any time, but it's a nice looking channel which is developed, and the next obvious target would be up here in about the 114.9 area. Ultimately, I'm thinking this is probably going to go back up and retest this high, but this isn't quite as well in sync with the dollar as it is normally. It always has to be to a degree in sync because it's 57% of the dollar index, but it's not as in sync as it normally is. GBP USD, not a lot to say on this. I've got more to say about this on the daily charts. We've had a head and shoulders which has broken down and failed, and we've had an IHS which has broken up and failed on USD/JPY. Now, obviously, there's been a lot of turbulence in Japan, but I'm thinking there's an overall pattern here, and it's just not clear what it is yet. Waiting to see and watching with interest. But I'm thinking this will clarify after the next significant high or low. With any luck. USD CAD, bigger picture, I've got a nice looking double top. This has been weaker. Well, when I say weaker, USD CAD obviously is correlated with the dollar. If we were looking at how strong Canadian dollar is, and we were looking strength is up, then that would be CAD USD. This has been the Canadian dollar strengthening against the US dollar, and the same applies obviously in the USD JPY chart. Australian dollar, not really got an opinion, doesn't really matter on the DX index either. In any case, and neither does NZ, which has a possible level top here, but that's just because it's finding resistance at this high. It could well just go higher. Got a 60-minute buy signal fix there. We shall see. All right, let's have a look at bonds. And okay, ZB. I've been watching this move up from the low, and strangely, I think a few days late, we were getting a lot of articles last week about how bonds were testing 5% on TYX, and actually, that wasn't true anymore. It had been true a week before. I wonder if it was just kind of some kind of delayed effect. But I've been watching this from the low, and this looks like a bear flag wedge. It looks a lot like a bear flag wedge. It doesn't have to be one. And equally, there are other options here. We're getting pretty close to an IHS neckline. We could overthrow here, make it to the neckline, or that area, do a right shoulder partial retracement, and then go up. But really, I'm leaning towards bonds going down. I have been reading that the Fed's probably going to have plans to hold it at 5% just by buying bonds. in large numbers, and it can probably do that for a while. But I think the chances of going up there are pretty high, and that would suggest that the prospects for ZB going lower are actually pretty good. I'm leaning towards saying at least to retest this low. I like this bear flag, and we've got a weak 60-minute sell signal fixed. Looking at ZN, we're actually trying to break up from a decent looking double bottom here. I'm doubtful about it making target. But we will see how that goes. But I'm leaning towards seeing this see a fail back towards the lows. All right, let's have a look at the currency charts. Okay. Looking at the euro, on the euro, we've got a nice looking overall bull flag on DX, which I'm just going to show you quickly. But I've got to say, there's a fair amount of support from that from other instruments. This is the line I drew in as the ideal bull flag support trend line, and we came down and hit it exactly. And since then, it's been holding. Now, this is the potential bull flag that could take US dollar back up to a retest of 114.78. And right now, it's looking pretty damn good, because I drew this in just after this high here when it was obvious we were going to go down, and that was a perfect hit. So what I'm looking at here is that on the currencies, I've got a very nice looking bear flag on the euro. And that looks pretty nice. And obviously that is the mirror image of the one that we've got on the dollar. So it is supportive. Now these can all both break in the direction they're not supposed to break in, but nonetheless, they're reasonably impressive. I've not drawn it in on here, so I'm working these shorter term patterns here. But if you have a look at the pound, what have we got here? We got another rising wedge, and this was nice. And I was actually looking at this as a different pattern, but then a different wedge, but then we broke up and then made it back up to the high perfectly. And this is a very nice looking rising wedge that looks an awful lot like a bear flag on the bigger picture. So again, I'm wondering about, well, I'm slightly skeptical about it just getting down to 103.84. I mean, that was a particular low just because we had a disastrous prime minister who came in 3 weeks and said a lot of stupid stuff, and that tends to be a shorter term thing in the UK than the US, it seems. But and then it went up after she left suddenly, but I'm skeptical about it getting all the way down here, but I've got to say the overall pattern setup is fairly supportive of a spike up on the dollar to come in the not too distant future. We may not see that. It may well break in the other direction. If it does break in the other direction, those do tend to effectively, this becomes the bottoming pattern. The DX bull flag would effectively become the topping pattern, and they do tend to make target pretty well. But I am aware of these patterns and I'm watching them carefully. On USD JPY, this looks a lot calmer than it seemed on the markets, but this is a very nice looking rising megaphone, and the next obvious target is down. Now that means down for the dollar and up for the yen, and yen's in a bit of a crisis. I am wondering whether we might see a retest of this level here at 162, and I'm keeping an open mind on this very much. But the obvious pattern setup here is that this is a bear flag, and this is going to go down an awful lot, and of course this would go down with the dollar. Keeping an open mind on that, but I would say this is a much longer term chart, and if we were to see a retest of that high on DX, then that would be a pretty good match with a retest of this high here at 162. I wouldn't be surprised to see that. All right, let's have a look at the USD CAD chart. Okay, USD CAD, we've got not much of a pattern here, but we've got this lovely looking double top here, which would be more of a match with the dollar going down. But again, we could retest this high here and then head down. We would see this again is a very long-term chart. But I'm watching this huge double top setup here, which is suggesting that we may see the dollar go down a lot. I'm thinking if we do see this high retest on the dollar, that may well be the second high of a big double top. And after that, we could see a major decline on the dollar, lasting years. Early days, these things do tend to take years to play out, but it's certainly looking interesting. USD, Australian dollar, we've got a nice looking falling channel here, hasn't broken up yet. NZUSD, a less obvious setup here, but we've been in this sort of contracting consolidation for 5 years now, and I am wondering whether this is going to break up. Which I think would be the obvious direction for the break. We will see. All right, let's have a look at bonds. Okay, I've been expanding my bonds charts here. I've been adding I've added the TLT charts back, and I've added TYX as well. Let's have a look at these. Okay, TYX, when we reached this high here, we actually made, can't see that here, but you can see it on the weekly, I think. Yes, it only made it by a tick. 51.52 is the high here, and we made 51.53 was the new high that we made. So we made it by one tick. We've got a perfect double top here, but I'm doubtful about that playing out given what is happening with fiscal policy in the US. But this is an obvious place to be consolidating. We are seeing some consolidation here, but here really we're looking at a ceiling, because if we see a sustained break up over 5, then it's very easy to get it over 6, and actually I'd have an IHS target up in about the 9.5 area. I've been reading around. The consensus seems to be that the Fed is going to be defending 5% on this very heavily. An awful lot of things are based on the TYX chart, on 30-year yields, like mortgage rates and so on and so forth. And they might spend quite a lot of money defending it, and it might take an act of profound stupidity on the part of the administration to really knock it out of that and get it over 6. But it is a risk, and I think there'll be quite a lot of pressure to take it there. We will see. We've got a potential IHS also forming on TNX here. We haven't made it up to the retest this high here at 49.97, but we did make it on TYX. In the shorter term, I've got a daily sell signal as fixed and hasn't quite reached the possible near miss target. We're testing the daily middle band as support and holding it so far, but we could see bonds rally a bit more and yields go down a bit more while this signal makes target. On the hourly chart, we've got an RSI 5 buy signal fixed, which isn't a very strong signal, but we're also reaching a potential head and shoulder neckline, which I'm watching carefully. We could see a head and shoulder forming here. Is there a consistent theme here? Well, I think bonds are going to be under pressure, but in the short term, yeah. I mean, bonds could go up, they could go down. I'm watching for patterns. We don't have anything definitive looking yet. Looking at TLT. TLT, I'm really not expecting this to happen, but and it's kind of like the double top we've got on TYX. It's there, but I'm not really expecting it to play out. I haven't got a double bottom here on TLT, but I've got an IHS, and it's nice. Very nice. Am I expecting it to play up and make target? No. Am I thinking it might break up and then reject back down again? Yeah, that's an option. That could involve a significant further rally on bonds. I'm a little doubtful about that, but we will see. All right, I've drawn that in here just because actually it is a pretty nice looking pattern. And a decent looking pattern always has a shot, even if the fundamentals aren't looking particularly promising. Looking at the daily chart, no current signals there. It's only really, and I haven't got one on TYX either, it's just the daily sell signal on the TNX chart. Okay, let's have a look at the CL chart. Okay, CL, I've been looking at this. We've got nice looking bear flags on CL, on heating oil, on gasoline, and the one on gasoline is actually breaking down with it below both the weekly pivot and the monthly pivot. I'm thinking these may all be heading back into retested lows, and I've got a setup here I've been watching, and it's been moving very slowly, where we've got a head and shoulders, which is now trying to break down with a target in about the 55.75 area. 55.80 I've got right here. So I'm watching that with interest. Obviously, it's got something I really like, which is it's got the support level at a major level, which is the new monthly pivot at 59.98. And watching that with great interest. Break and convert that to resistance, and we can go straight down. And really, I think the outlook for energies for the rest of this year is not strong. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see this play out and retest the lows. HO hasn't broken down yet, but it's thinking about it. And gasoline has already broken down. So CL is actually the strongest of the three. By the way, question for you guys. Should I add Brent crude? I've now taken 3 out of the main 4 oil features. I was wondering whether I ought to add Brent as well. Okay, looking at NG. NG, we've almost made it back to a retest of this low here at 3.43. I'm really expecting to still see that, and I'm wondering about a retest this low here at 3.3. We did have a little IHS that broke up here and failed, and of course that's got a target at a retest of this low here at 3.43, which we're pretty close to, and I'm expecting to make. We do have a weak 60-minute buy signal fixed, but really I'm actually slightly surprised that hasn't failed already. We've gone down considerably since it fixed. Maybe this is a little level bottom here, but I have to say I've got a pretty decent target at 3.43 and it hasn't made it yet. All right, looking at the bigger picture chart on that. Alrighty, looking at the daily chart. Well, on the daily chart, if we see a retest the low, that would obviously set up a potential level bottom, and I do have a channel here, so I've got potential support there, which I'll be watching with interest. No current negative divergence, which would be taking us down there. Nothing on the weekly chart either, so not necessarily going to head lower. I do have, if we do break the lows with some confidence, I am wondering about this trend line here, but this is just drawn in because it's an obvious level, an obvious trend line, not because I think it's particularly likely to make it. So on the monthly chart, I haven't marked in a support trend line because I don't think there's one where I really have much confidence yet. Although it might be this one that went through here, but even that would take going down to 45. That's possible, but not necessarily that likely. All right, looking at heating oil. On the monthly chart, we've been consolidating and compressing, and I'm thinking we're going to see a break soon, and I'm thinking that that break may well be down. In terms of the weekly chart, we've got an RSI 5 buy signal fixed. In terms of the daily chart, no divergence. But I would say on the bigger picture, this is much larger, well, larger somewhat, than the channel that I was showing on WTIC. We do have this very nice looking falling wedge here, or at least the support trend line is very nice. This could hold on a low retest. I'm thinking we may well see a low retest. I'm wondering if it might hold. Looking at gas. Gas, I'm looking at the daily chart. Do we have an overall wedge here? Not obviously, no. Although we do have a wedge here, which is broken up, retested the low. We could be forming a low here, and if we retested the low again, that could set up a nested double bottom. It's less confident than the others, but we will see. All right, natural gas. Obviously we had this double bottom breakup at a target of 5.75 area. That's looking unlikely to make target. And on the bigger picture, on the smaller picture, this is a possible head and shoulders forming, and I am leaning lower. I think economic activity in the US is not likely to be doing that well for the rest of the year, and that's not likely to be great for natural gas, well, any energy prices. So we will see. We've seen quite a hard fail, and I think the double bottom is failing, and if so, we may well be failing back into the lows, and those lows would be back down in the 1.686 area. So I am thinking it may well halve from the current levels. We shall see. All right, let's have a look at on gold. Okay. Gold, we haven't quite made it back to flag resistance yet, but I do have a very nice looking potential bull flag here, and I think this is a bull flag. I'll get more confirmation when we see a retest of this trend line, but right now it looks like a bull flag. On silver, this looks like a bull flag which has already broken up and just hasn't made it to the flag target yet. I've got that in about the 34 area. We almost made it, but not quite. This looks like a bullish consolidation. I'm expecting the next move in all probability to be up. Now, palladium really went off script. We had a wild move up, and then we had a head and shoulders with an ambitious move down, and that was made too. We got a potential level bottom here, and I'm leaning towards seeing at least a bit of a rally. We will see. Platinum, we had a nice looking flag here, but we broke down from it. I'm not really thinking that that means we are necessarily going to go much lower, but I would note that we've reached a possible head and shoulder neckline here. We did have a very strong move up here, and it's trying to break out of a consolidation area it's been in for the last couple of years, and maybe this means that we're not going to do it, or we'll see a sizable retracement first. We'll see. HG, I'm again not particularly finding this promising for the rest of this year. We will see how it goes. I am wondering about a retest of this high here to make the second high of a double top before it goes down. We'll see. But I think one way or another, this is probably going to be going down over the next few months. We've got, in the short term though, we've got a weak 60-minute buy signal fixed. All right, let's have a look at those on the bigger picture. Okay, gold. Gold, we've got what looks like a bull flag, and I think that's because it is a bull flag. We've been holding the daily middle band over the last few days. This is where we're finding a lot of support there. Now it could break, but we've seen 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. 8 days of basically going down quite regularly and holding over the daily middle band each day, quite often closing on it. That's some decent looking support. Now, this could break down and do another leg lower within the flag, but really it looks good to go, and I'm leaning towards it breaking up. Certainly, as long as that daily middle band is holding, I'm not seeing why it wouldn't break up next. Looking at silver, this looks like a bull flag, and I'm leaning towards that breaking up next as well. Looking at palladium, I'm still wondering about a possible retest this low here at 808. This isn't a great looking low. Could be enough. But so far, since I've been talking about this, it's really only gone up. We will see how that goes. Looking at the daily chart, we've got the daily middle band at 971, so we're slightly below it at the moment. I'm not quite sure what's been driving this year, but I do know this hasn't been following, obviously, gold up for the last couple of years in a very impressive move up, and that's because this is mainly an industrial metal. I am thinking it might become more than that over the next few months, and we might see it at least partially acting as a precious metal, but this is a lot of it acting as an industrial metal. Looking at platinum, we've seen this consolidation for a couple of years, and I am wondering whether that might be breaking up. It could be that there is a larger pattern in this area waiting to be revealed, but we'll see. Looking at the weekly chart, no current divergence. You can see the slight break up over. It could be that we're going to see a rejection or at least a retracement. And I am wondering about that head and shoulder pattern and a possible back test, at least, of the daily middle band currently at 1,016. Looking at copper, I was saying when we got up near this high that this might well be the second high of a double top, and so far I'm thinking it was probably the second high of a double top. Ultimately, that would take us down into about the 2.3 to 2.2 to 2.3 area. In the short term, I think we're consolidation before the next move down. Looking at the daily chart, no current divergence, not really been doing anything particularly interesting to get divergence on it. We're below and looking as though we have converted the 50 DMA short resistance. Next target really is to convert the 200 DMA at 4.4. All right, looking at GDX. GDX leaning towards this going higher next. We'll see. We've got a bit of negative divergence there because we've got 60-minute sell signal fixed on both, on the hourly GDX and GDXJs. Might see a bit of retracement there, but on the bigger picture, I'm leaning towards these being bull flags, which are already breaking up or are in the process of breaking up at the moment. We'll see. All right, let's have a look at the other commodities. KC, this looks like a falling wedge, and the next obvious target within the falling wedge would be wedge resistance, currently in the 338 area. No current divergence at the moment, and no particular reason to think that it is going to reverse back up here. I am leaning towards the closer we get to this low here in about 323 area, the more likely it is we're going to see a full retest. Looking at sugar, I was expecting to see a retest of this low. We've seen it. This is a potential level bottom, and I'm watching with interest to see what happens here. We're coming pretty close to this declining resistance. If we break up above it, we could have an inverted head and shoulders forming here. I am wondering if we might see a significant reversal back up. And we've still got a potentially apocalyptic pattern on the daily chart, but I'll show you more about that because that also could be a bull flag. So we'll see. Okay, CC has broken up over this declining resistance. We've still got a head and shoulder target, which is down in about I've rolled this into September. So the head and shoulder target is now in about the 76.25 area. But we've broken up from here, and we've got an opportunity to derail that. If this was to fail, then that would be on a move back over about 96.25. So if we do that, then that sets us up potentially for a move up back to retest the high. Okay, looking at CT, potential level bottom here looks decent. Lumber, still got a weak 60-minute buy signal fixed here. Probably going to possibly see a retest this high, but overall I'm leaning lower. On wheat, no current divergence. Could this be an IHS forming? Yes. It could, and it wouldn't be a bad one. Looking at corn, we've got a possible 60-minute buy signal brewing, got a possible little level bottom here. I'm wondering about a low. If we don't see one here, we're probably going to retest this low here in the 436 area. Looking at soy, this is actually a pretty nice looking wedge, bull flag wedge. I'm thinking this may well break up from here. So watching this with interest, and we've got a 60-minute buy signal fixed. Looking at Looking at soybean oil, 60-minute buy signal fixed. Could this be a flag? Yes. Might it be something else? Yes. Looks less. It's certainly not as nice a pattern setup as we've got on soy. Looking at live cattle, I think we may be looking at a flag here, ABC. In which case, I'd be looking for a lower low. Looking at lean hogs, I was looking for a retest the high. We've seen it. We've got a potential level bottom here, so we'll see whether it reverses. Okay, let's have a look at those on the bigger picture charts. And looking at coffee. Coffee is very, very stretched by historical standards. And this actually was pretty much the high we'd made for the previous 20 years. And obviously we went well above it. Not surprising seeing this come back. This could be an ABC bull flag forming next obvious target in about 2.93 area. Looking at the daily chart, no current divergence. Looking a little stretch on the RSI 5, which is now under 10, probably needs a bounce sooner rather than later. Looking at sugar, we've got this apocalyptic head and shoulder pattern here, which is breaking down with a target a lot lower. But gotta say, it also makes a pretty decent looking bull flag wedge. Not bad at all. So sometimes you see this and you get two obvious patterns in the same setup. I'm thinking that we may well be forming the bull flag, in which case we're almost at the low and we'd be heading up from here. So this is actually quite attractive. We've got a possible weak RSI 5 buy signal growing on the weekly chart. On the daily chart, no current divergence, but I've drawn the wedge in again here. This is a potential level bottom. It's nice. I think this could head up and start making tracks to the upside. So watching that with great interest. That's looking more bullish now. Looking at cocoa. Cocoa, we've seen a nice move up here. Am I thinking we'll retest the high here? I am doubtful. We will see. Looking at the daily chart, no current divergence. I'm leaning towards the downside. We are testing the daily middle band here. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see it fail. Looking at wheat, we've pretty much retested the low, but not quite. Trying to get back over the weekly middle band. On the daily chart, this has been a nice rally. Back testing the daily middle band at the moment. Wouldn't surprise me to see this go up. And it's, as I said, it's not an awful inverted head and shoulders, although it's not great either. We will see. So would this be cleaner if we went and made a full retest of this low here at 495.50? Yes, it would. Looking at corn, this is a potential flag, but it's also a potential inverted head and shoulders. I'm keeping an open mind for the moment, but I wouldn't be surprised to see this break up. Looking at corn on the daily, no current divergence. We'll see. Nice break below the daily middle band, needs to recover over that for the bulls. Okay, looking at soybeans, we've still got this wedge here. We've broken up. I've got an overall bullish lean on wheat because we've got this big wedge and it's broken up. I've got an overall bullish lean on corn because we've got this big wedge and it's broken up. On soybeans, it hasn't broken up yet. Although we're pretty close to resistance, so and this kind of looks like a bear flag. I'm watching the weekly middle band. That seems to be pretty good support here, and I've got that at 103.3, well 103.4. And if that holds, then we could go back and retest the low from here. But I wouldn't be that surprised to see it break up. We will see. Looks very much like a flag here, though, on the daily chart. Looking at cotton, we've got another wedge there. Again, that hasn't broken up, but I'm wondering if it's going to. On lumber, this looks like an overall bear flag forming. We will see how it goes. In that case, well, that's a wrap. I will catch you guys again on Wednesday. By the way, one thing to mention is I'm putting a paywall up on this from next Sunday, i.e. the day this one's still going to be free, and Wednesday's going to be free, and next Sunday is going to be free, but after that it's going to be paying subscriber only, although obviously there'll be trial subscriptions. So I'm gradually putting paywalls up on all of my free Substacks, and that is the next one to go on. All right, great. Everyone take care, and I'll catch you guys again on Wednesday. Take care.